We all kind of do this work here at Shed Aquarium, not only to take care of the ambassadors for their species that reside here to help educate the public, but to kind of give back to some of these wild populations. So it's extremely fulfilling to get to go somewhere like Madagascar, take everything that you've learned here at the aquarium working with red and yellow-footed tortoises up in our Amazon exhibit and apply that to radiated tortoises in the wild to kind of help their populations.
Confiscation usually means that one of our local or federal agencies is reaching out. Most often it's the local office of the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, and it means that an animal has been shipped or trafficked illegally. We are really well suited to be able to be partners with them. Caring for animals is what we do all day, every day. Usually we're going to want to put that animal in a quarantine situation because we don't know what kind of illnesses it might bring in, and we don't want to expose the rest of our animals that we care for to that potential disease or parasite issue. Fish and Wildlife usually bring those animals to our doorstep. Our vets are probably coming down and looking at it within the first couple hours of its arrival and seeing, is there medical care that we need to do right away? If we don't feel there is, we're going to just try and do everything we can to make those animals as comfortable as we possibly can. We did that several years ago with a large group of freshwater fish from the Amazon called an arapaima, and they get to be about 6, 8, 12 feet. They come in really small and cute, and maybe someone thinks they're going to put them in their home aquarium. We don't really know what they come in for. Fish and Wildlife has to maintain the confidentiality of those cases that they're working on prosecuting. We've had 2 large confiscations of arapaima in the time that I have worked at Shed, which is like a little over 25 years. Both those shipments were between 80 and 100 individual animals that were probably between 2 and 3 inch size, which is pretty close to newborn size. When a confiscation comes to us, like an arapaima, the animals are usually in pretty rough shape. Maybe there's more animals in a bag of water than there probably should have been. They've probably been sitting in transport for a very long time. They may not have been fasted, which will help them with not adding as much waste to the water and keep the water in its better quality prior to shipment. And unfortunately, oftentimes many of those animals are dead by the time they make it to our doorstep. But we're going to pull out anything that's alive, even if it looks like it's barely alive. We're going to put them into fresh, clean water that matches the conditions that those animals would be in the wild, and kind of triage those and have as many as possible survive initially. And then we're going to be dealing with secondary problems like bacterial infections that they might have from the stress of the transport. So to get 80 arapaima here, probably 20, 30 of those are dead before we even get a chance to try and help them out. Sometimes we're pulling through most of what comes to our doorstep. Sometimes we might pull through half. We're always going to try and save as many of them as we possibly can.
Unfortunately, the illegal wildlife trade is actually the 3rd most lucrative illegal trade behind drugs and firearms because of the value some of these animals carry for medicinal purposes or in the pet trade. Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Matt O'Connor for Shed Aquarium Animal Response Team, coming to you from Ifadi, Madagascar, which is down in the southwest corner of the country. Right now is one of my favorite times of day, feeding time in the afternoon for all these hungry radiated tortoises. Here's everyone lined up for some afternoon meal. We have some leafy greens. In the Madagascar situation, they found close to 10,000 radiated tortoises in a house down in the southern part of Madagascar in 2018, in April of 2018. So it very quickly became like an international response to send other people out there who work a lot with reptiles and amphibians to kind of help out, triage the tortoises, and get them back to a good, healthy plane. I was on the 2nd team that got sent out. Because it's so many animals, we play the long game, so we actually will send multiple teams out there. The first team kind of got the hospital set up, and then I was there to continue to treat the tortoises and sort of sort them. With 10,000 animals, you obviously aren't going to examine all of them in one day, so we would kind of do them in waves and split them up into healthy ones, a little bit sick, very sick.
So I wanted to take you into this pen so you can just appreciate the size of this confiscation. I hopefully will never in my life see this many radiated tortoises in one place again. Just the number of animals here is quite amazing.
We are faced with all sorts of kind of working conditions in Madagascar. The main issue that kind of held us back is lack of electricity. So the hospital that we were working in actually did not have any electricity, so that pretty much is what determined what our work day was like. We got up at dawn as soon as the sun was up, ate some breakfast, headed out to the hospital, immediately went to work, and we pretty much were working out there until the sun started going down and we couldn't see what we were doing in the hospital.
So these are some of our sickest tortoises. You can see they all have individual ID numbers, and then with a confiscation of this magnitude.
One reason why Madagascar unfortunately is targeted for some of these illegal wildlife trade is they have a lot of what's called endemic species, which means they're found nowhere else in the world, and radiated tortoises are one of those. They're highly sought after in the pet trade just because of how beautiful their shells are. Having worked with over 20 different species of turtles and tortoises at the aquarium, we're well versed in Chelonian medicine, which encompasses all those different species. We're very fortunate for 10,000 animals that the mortality rate was about 10%, so we were able to turn the vast majority of those around. They're all still being taken care of by local staff at some of these temporary facilities that have been built there, with the hope that they'll go back to the wild eventually.
Another case that brings a lot of memories back was we had a confiscation of spotted turtles, which is a species that's native to the US, and they were being shipped in the post, which was not legal, I believe, to somewhere in Asia, and they were just packed horribly, and they just had so many health issues. And we worked so hard on those animals and spent so much time and energy and efforts and finances on medical care, and most of those animals actually pulled through, and we have a couple of them that are still behind the scenes at Amazon, but many of them went to other AZA facilities, and that felt really good that we were able to find so many homes for them, and that hopefully they'll go on and breed and those populations will be sustainable into the future. You know, a lot of times people ask, how come those animals can't go back? Which is a great question, and I love that people are thinking that way. But unfortunately, without knowing exactly where that animal comes from, you might be introducing an animal that doesn't belong exactly there. Maybe it's picked up parasites or problems that are never seen in the wild along its transport route. Maybe it was housed with other species from different countries, and then it could introduce those parasites to a population that's not used to it. So most times, unfortunately, these animals cannot go back. When you feel like you're making a difference, and even of 80 fish, if you only save one, you are making a difference in the life of that animal and in the lives of all the people that will get to see this animal if we can place it at Shed Aquarium or at another public aquarium.
When we're faced with these situations where wildlife is in peril, it can seem daunting. How does one person make a difference? The simple answer is rarely does one person make a difference. It takes kind of a whole village to help some of these species out.
Just by coming to Shed Aquarium and buying a ticket and learning more about these programs, you're helping to support us and helping to provide care for these animals. So I think there's a lot that people can do.